Welcome to the final installment of this week's Talkin Trek. It really became this Berman-era production. And of course, we say Berman because he was the showrunner for the 3 shows, but there were so many people, so many creative people behind the scenes that were keeping that flame alive from 1986 until 2005. And most especially to the end of 2001 with the end of Voyager. To have all these crisscrossing characters, crisscrossing storylines, as you say, the Klingon arc really does wrap up. Gowron is installed by Picard, or is certainly sponsored by Picard.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, he was. Yeah, he was. He was installed by Picard because the Duros family and stuff. And what I love about that is that the Duros family go on to to appear in Star Trek Generations. So we have this far-reaching storyline of all these different characters crisscrossing, and I think that was fantastic. That was the joy of having a franchise that was set in the same universe, that's set in the same time period, that's kind of there's no reason. And then when the movies came out, you had the EMH show up in First Contact. We had there was a scene shot with Quark, which was cut from I think Insurrection or one of the films. So they had a Quark episode anyway.
And another thing that DS9 really pioneered at the time and is now, we touched on it before with multi-episode story threads, and how it was really, at that time, it very much was standalone episodes and universe within itself, and next week we have to be somewhere else that we don't need to know the history of the series to be able to get in and watch. But DS9 really dipped its toe into multi-episode threads.
Once you're in that 3rd season, if you've not seen the first couple of seasons, there are episodes that are going to start you're going to start having to go, okay, I have no idea what's going on here. And I think was really positive, and really a good move for the show from a story point of view. What I just think that it's a matter of the story demanded that, and that was the key element to it. It just demanded that. The story always demanded that. There was no way that you couldn't do it. You could kick and scream and drag yourself along, but the reality was that the episodes were always going to start running onto each other because they had to tell that bigger story.
Yeah, I mean, it really started in season 2 there with the 3-part season opener about the long lost Bajoran war hero who comes back. The government changes,
that's right.
But Sisko's not ready to give up the station, which is really his turning point. The 3-episode, although they weren't joined, but the 3-part episode basically from season 3 with Tom Riker coming on board for the Marquis, stealing the Defiant, and then the information that we learn in that episode about this mysterious Obsidian Order fleet. What are they doing there? Why does the Obsidian Order have ships? Even Gul Dukat, who becomes a central character in that episode with our main cast off to the side, going, why are they having ships? They shouldn't have ships. And then a few episodes later, they rock up at the station and they're like, we're going to go destroy the Founders. So there's that thing again of having to know the series.
Well, and there was always the mystery of Odo, and mentioning the
and that was another thread.
That's a mystery that's set up in the first season. So again, it was a storyline that was always going to demand that there was story arc to it, and there was no two ways about it. And I know that they talked about, like we talk about the Berman era. The reality is he did a great job, but then also he did an awful job at the same time.
Yes.
I think Brandon Braga probably has talked about that, particularly around Enterprise, in greater detail about, look, you're dealing with 26, 27 episodes or whatever it is of basically mini movies where you are running on empty towards the end of the seasons and stuff like that. It's just a constant grind. And of course, you're going to start making mistakes and you're going to start repeating yourself because it's just literally you're more about the business of getting some episodes out than anything. And I think what Berman, I know there was arguments about Nog when he lost his leg, and they were like, well, you can't do an ongoing thing like that. And then they had arguments about where the leg was actually severed, and they were okay with it below the knee, but not happy with it above the knee. Yeah, pedantic little stuff like that, which I understand the writers struggled a lot with. And they were like, we want to do this and we want to do that, and they couldn't do it. So it's just, again, it's a testament to the show that under conditions that probably less than ideal from a writer's creative point of view, to do such an amazing job.
And they wrapped up the series with a 9-part finale where we really dove hard into the war. Star Trek was an optimistic vision of the future, and here we were battling someone else that didn't hold our ideals, which was so refreshing. So, to me, it was just brilliant that someone else didn't share our ideals, and at the end of the episode, everything wasn't necessarily all hunky-dory and peachy. And to wrap that up with 9 episodes, and to really have, in the end there, with what you left behind, the battle of the final battle of Cardassia Prime, and to have the Klingons that are bloodthirsty and let's go kill them all, and the Federation just standing there going, Cisco and Admiral Ross standing there going, you know what, we're sick of this. Let's just get it done. And when it gets done, well, that's it, you know, and it was done.
I think what's important about that element to it too is, whilst there's definitely episodes that the Starfleet ethos is questioned through the darkness, when they get to Cardassia Prime and they've said that they're going to drink blood wine over the bodies of their enemies. Our representatives of Starfleet, Admiral Ross and Cisco at that stage, both kind of balk at that because they've won, but at what cost and all that type of stuff. And I think that's an important epilogue to the story of, this is darker Star Trek or blah, blah, blah. I think that's a very important element to the storyline to remind us that, yes, there are things that have happened which aren't great and don't gel with the Federation. And so thus upholding the idea of the Federation, as opposed to, I guess, some of the criticisms of, particularly, I guess, Discovery, of this kind of almost reveling in the idea of Section 31s and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's not... That's not the norm. That's not status quo. That's not good. That type of thing. That's all fringe elements and isn't the center of what Starfleet stands for. And I think that was the important element that they brought to that last episode, of reminding us of that fact, of saying, yep, okay, well, we had to do horrible things and war isn't pleasant, but that's not who the Federation are. We never went to war because we just wanted to beat our enemies, or because it's gritty and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's possibly a scene that's lost on, again, some people who might argue and say, well, Deep Space Nine is a dark and nasty kind of gritty element of the Federation. It's like, but it wasn't. At the end of the day, it was the side that is righteous, I guess, or good, that had to do the things that had to be done, and then at the end of the day, it was in order to protect kind of what they stood for. And I think that, and when they no longer needed to do that, they completely balked at it and stepped away from it, because that's not who they were. And I think that was a really great message from Deep Space Nine.
Well, that sounds like an absolutely perfect place to wrap up our discussion on Deep Space Nine. We've been talking Trek for the last couple of days about Deep Space Nine, and it's been really fascinating to hear your insights, Lee, and it's something that I really sort of haven't done before, is to dive into someone else's, or have a deep chat with someone else who is as passionate with Star Trek as I am, and it's really cool to hear another side of the story, and as you've said during the show, there are different opinions there on the franchise, and they should all be celebrated, and there is so much content out there that it doesn't have to appeal. Everything doesn't have to appeal to everyone.
Well, I mean, what I love about it is someone might watch Deep Space Nine and get a completely different vibe from it. And that's fine, and that's great, and I think it's art. It's interpreted by the viewer, and once it's kind of out there, it's not it's no longer, okay, the intent might have been, well, we intended this because of, we made Nog do this, and that was the full intent. But the rest of the world goes, no, it meant this. And everyone goes, oh, okay, well, that's what it meant then. I'm afraid you're going to have to get over that. That's just where it is. It's always fun to even kind of explore your own thoughts on some of these shows, because you kind of don't, you may passively watch them and then kind of, take in what you take in, and then not really realize, you know what, I really thought that's interesting. So, no, thanks for having me on.
Perfect. Lee, thanks very much for talking Trek, and we'll see you next week with Voyager.
Yeah.
And that's how we talk Trek here on Trekzone. We might have missed out on some of your favourite or least favourite moments of the show. There's just so much to talk about. So leave a comment about your memories of DS9 and any standout moments. Next week, Lee and I are chatting Voyager, but in the meantime, get exclusive access to podcasts, behind-the-scenes info, uncut editions of the show, and this month's Talkin Trek eps in full. In fact, the Voyager episode is available right now for members on Patreon. Support Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek. Get even better with membership starting at just $1 per month. Jump over to patreon.com/TrekZone.org.au. You can also get social with Trekzone. Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek is everywhere you are. Get the wrap up on our Facebook page, keep in the loop on Twitter, and relive Trek episodes on Instagram right now. Plus, you can catch the latest podcasts on your favourite podcasting app. New content is being added all the time to Trekzone's YouTube channel, Talkin Science with Dr. Brad Tucker on Tuesdays, Talkin Live on Thursdays following our Vegas or Bust tour, and a Trekzone conversation on Saturdays. Don't miss a moment, subscribe and ring the bell to be the first to know about new eps. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you next week.